There it goes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Where are you, wherever you are in the world right now? Welcome to Barbara and Friends on a Mission show. My name is Barbara Ellison, and I am on a mission to make happiness the norm rather than the exception. And the thing is, part of happiness is having influence for those around us, having impact on the world around us, but also to be able to earn income, because we all have bills to pay. And so that is what this show is going to be all about, talking to people who are also on a mission to have influence and impact and to help other people to earn income. So I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Jackie Simmons. And Jackie is on a mission, and it is absolutely amazing. So Jackie, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am well, Barbara. Thank you so much for inviting me. I love being part of your group of friends.
This is, you know what? And I don't know if you know this. I met you, oh yike, I don't remember how many years ago. I was at a Suzanne Evans event. I believe it was in Florida.
Probably in Orlando.
In Orlando, and you were there and just listened to you speak, and then got to talk with you, back in your area, and it was just such fun, just a fun thing, and of course got on your list, and of course then over the years have heard of you and heard you speak and heard you do other things, and then this last week or so, it was, I'm not even quite sure exactly what it was like, Barbara, you have got to get Jackie to talk about her mission, because right now kids are in a world of hurt, and people are in a world of hurt, and we're going to talk about that. But right now, let's talk about some fun things first.
Oh, it's all fun in my world. Okay, so we're going to set this up for people, because
exactly,
if they don't know who I am or what I'm about, this might be just a little confusing. I'm the lady whose marketing messages hit people like a smack in the face, because I dare to put fun and suicide prevention in the same sentence. See, we know suicide is serious, but we believe suicide prevention can be seriously fun, because we're all about pure prevention. Now, I'm going to clean up a little bit of misconception. Right. Suicide prevention programs that they talk about in our culture are by definition not prevention, because they don't kick in until there's a known risk factor, until you have a label of being at risk, you have a mental health diagnosis, or you have had a previous attempt. And this is a little bit crazy making for me, because for me, prevention is something that you do before there's a risk.
Right.
So that's what we're all about. So the elephant in the room is we are not your typical suicide prevention group or program. Matter of fact, our best tool is the simplest one. And it's a 4-step script that allows parents to talk to their kids about suicide and know immediately whether or not intervention is necessary before you think they need to have the talk, before you think they're at risk, before they're struggling with suicidal thoughts. You have this talk now, and you can prevent them from ever needing to be talked off a ledge. We're out to suicide-proof the world.
And you know what? Exactly. And I remember when you and I first talked about it back when I was on your summit, and it was just, it hit me so hard, because like I have teenage, my youngest grandchild is 10. You know what? We got to, and they're bombarded. The thing, one day I came down, I don't even remember what show they were watching. And I was like, what? And they were talking about people taking their own life.
Oh, we've got a real language going on that if parents don't know what the kids are talking about. You know how every generation has their kind of code words?
Their lingo, yes.
And we talk about the cancel culture, meaning if you piss somebody off, they're going to diss you on social media and wipe out your accounts and all of these crazy things.
Right.
When kids are together and they talk about somebody self-deleting, they're talking about them taking their own lives.
Right.
And parents don't know that that's what that means. And they have made it so dismissive because it is so prevalent. In 2019, we published a book. We had this fledgling idea that maybe we could get kids, peers, teens to talk to each other about this topic. So we wrote a book. We wrote Make It a Great Day. The choice is yours.
Yes.
And we took that into the local high school. And after I spoke and explained to the students what the program was, why it was so important, at that point in time, the statistic was over 3,000 teenagers in America attempt to take their own lives every day. Every day. So we knew that there was a big issue that people weren't talking about. So we went into the schools, explained the program. It was a buy one, give two. Everybody who bought a book, we donated 2 books to teens.
Yeah.
And then I went around the room and I asked, what's your story? Do you have a friend who's tried or died? And one after the other, they shared their stories.
Right.
And the heartbreaking stories. I mean, one young lady was sharing, she lost her first friend to suicide in elementary school.
Wow.
And her second friend last year. And she's only a sophomore.
Yeah.
When I got to my car after that meeting, I sat in my car and just bawled because it wasn't most of the kids in the room. It was 100% of the kids in that room had a suicide story.
Right.
And I am certain that their parents are just as clueless about it as I was back in 1995. Yeah. It was June. I mean, this is people have, how did you get on this mission? Well, I did not get on this mission because my daughter attempted to take her own life 30 years ago, and I've been crusading about it ever since. That's not my story. No. My story is that my daughter attempted to take her own life in June of 1995.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of summer vacation. All 3 of my daughters were getting ready to go visit their dad and his family. One stayed away, and that meant shopping. You got girls, that means shopping.
Yeah. Right.
My daughter Stephanie was 14 years old. She's in between her sisters, in between schools, and in between clothing sizes.
Oh, yeah.
The shopping became an adventure. Outfit after outfit, store after store. Barbara, nothing fit her. And at the end of the day, we came home with nothing but an attitude. And she went straight upstairs to the bathroom. I collapsed on the sofa, grateful to be off my feet.
Right.
Peace and quiet. And then, Mom, I think I need help. My eyes were drawn to Stephanie's left arm. Blood was dripping off her fingers onto the wood floor. The emotional part of my brain started screaming in terror at the sight of my bleeding, obviously suicidal child. The rational part of my brain started flipping through the files in my head, looking for the date of her last tetanus shot. I wrapped her in my arms and assessed the wounds. They weren't life-threatening. Have you ever felt panicky and calm at the same time?
Yeah.
So we applied bandages, made a plan to visit the local teen mental health facility the next day. Finally, the tears stopped. Our mutual I'm sorries were shared, and she slept. Between us, her handwritten note, her promise not to harm herself again while I slept. Like I was going to close my eyes that night.
Wow. Yeah.
All night I stared into the darkness, listened to her breathe, grateful she was still alive. And my thoughts just whirled between what just happened, how did this happen?
Right.
And who's to blame? It had to be somebody's fault, right?
Right. Exactly.
What followed that night was years of counseling, therapy, medications, hospitalizations, interventions, and 13 more attempts.
Yeah.
As long as Stephanie was getting professional help, it was easy for me to sell myself on the idea that we didn't need to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
Would you want to know what could cause your kids so much mental and emotional pain that they would think dying was better than living?
Right. That we take it within ourselves. Yeah.
I didn't want to know, so I didn't ask. And I stayed silent. And the silence lasted 23 years. And then on August the 3rd, 2019, Stephanie, now 37, breaks the silence. And Barbara, the morning of her talk was sunny and already hot. You know, the hotel was on the outskirts of Sarasota, Florida. I walked into the conference room and greeted Stephanie and the 11 other speakers that I'd trained to deliver messages that matter. Everything worked that morning. You know, the videographer was set, the projector, the microphone, PowerPoint, everything worked, and the audience took their seats. Stephanie was getting into that nervous, excited state you get into right before you talk.
Oh, yeah.
She looked amazing in her dark blouse and flowery skirt and her hair pulled back in combs. I'm super proud of my daughter. She was first up on the speaker's roster, and the lights dimmed. And it was like, everybody help me welcome Stephanie Ashton. She walked confidently to the front of the room and shook my hand. And she started by saying, 3,000 teenagers will attempt to take their own lives today in the US. In the back of the room, I'm shocked twice. First, because I had no idea the number was that high.
Wow.
And second, because I had no idea suicide was her topic. She continued with, when I was 14, after a bad day of shopping, I stood in my bathroom. The pain of not fitting into any clothes was just more proof that I didn't fit in anywhere. And that pain was more than I could bear. I took a razor and cut into my left arm, trying to ease the pain and end my life. In the back of the room, I'm going pale. I mean, I can feel the blood draining from my face. Have you ever been hijacked by a bad memory?
Yeah, we all have them.
Stephanie continued. Oh, by the way, I got hijacked. It took all 30 years of stress management training that I'd had to keep me from just crawling into a corner and bawling. Stephanie continued with, it wasn't my only attempt. There were others. But outside of professional help, I've never really talked about it, especially not with mom. It's too painful, too awkward, too easy to avoid.
Right.
Mom and I had other talks. Mom and I had to talk about sex. Mom and I had to talk about drugs. Mom and I had to talk about alcohol. And then I went to college on a dry campus. That means the kegs were hidden in the showers of the girls' dorm. Mom and I had to talk about alcohol more than once, but we never talked about suicide. I still struggle with suicidal thoughts. In the back of the room, I go from pale to bone cold as I realize the struggles that she's had to face alone because I didn't have the courage to have the talk about suicide.
Right.
It was one of the craziest moments of my life. And Stephanie in the front of the room finishes up her talk. On my suicide avoidant journey, I've learned tons of coping skills. Now, I want to teach teens coping skills before they need them. Yes, before they need them. Everybody gives her a standing ovation. There is not a dry eye in the house. Some people rush up and hug her and thank her for being so brave and so willing, so vulnerable. And I'm frozen in the back of the room, totally torn between pride for her bravery and guilt and shame from my cowardice.
Right.
And Barbara, then it hit me. 3,000 teens attempt to take their own lives every day. This means 6,000 parents every day start to live the guilt nightmare that I'd lived. This means over 20,000 grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters start to live the guilt nightmare that I'd lived.
Right.
And every day, hundreds of thousands of classmates, teachers, boyfriends, girlfriends, and neighbors start to live the guilt nightmare, all just as blindsided by it as I had been.
Right. Right.
Then I wondered, what if Stephanie was right? What if the key to stopping teen suicide was as simple as having the talk before you think they need it?
Right.
Before your teen starts to struggle with suicidal thoughts.
Right.
It's so simple and obvious that professionals have tripped over this. Well, we've done that before, right? Simple and obvious, like putting wheels on luggage.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Putting ketchup in squeezable bottles. Simple and obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after that day, Stephanie and I decided to work together. Who knew that was possible?
Right.
Along with her sisters, we co-founded the Teen Suicide Prevention Society.
Yes.
Our research taught us that suicide prevention is not intervention.
No.
It's not about at-risk anybody. And it's not about waiting for signs. We live in a day and an age where sometimes the first sign somebody's at risk is an attempt and they don't all survive.
Right.
It's not about waiting for signs. It's prevention. It's about having the talk before we think they need it.
Right.
So we started teaching mothers, brothers, sisters, uncles, grandparents, teachers, friends, how to have the talk about suicide. It's a simple science-based script. And it's 4 questions. And the script is designed to work the way the teen brain really works.
Right.
It's a script designed to tell you when intervention is needed. It's a script designed to save you from the guilt nightmare. And it's designed to build emotional resilience in both the teen and the adult.
Right.
So simple 4 questions. Do we have time for this? I'll give them all to everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because
cool.
This is absolutely essential learning. We need to stem this.
So here we go. Really simple. First, step 1, invite your teen to talk one-on-one. No tag teams, not 2 parents, 1 kid, not 1 kid, 2 parents, one-on-one. And ask, have you heard about the rise in teen suicides?
Oh.
Just ask. It's a simple yes or no question.
Right.
Then, step 2, take a deep breath and ask, do you have a friend who's tried or died? This is a very carefully worded, neutral language question. So ask it verbatim. Do you have a friend who's tried or died? Again, it's a yes or no question. They may give you details. They may not give you details. It doesn't matter. What we're actually doing is starting to pull their brain in. Step 3, take another deep breath, because you're going to want to listen without judgment. The question is, have you ever thought of leaving that way? This is, again, a very carefully worded, neutral question. Have you ever thought of leaving that way? The goal is for you to be able to ask it and to listen to their answer without needing to fix anything.
Right.
Okay, this is not the time to argue with them about how they feel. This is a time to keep your mouth shut and listen. Not so easy on this topic, and I get it. Step 4. This is when we've pulled them all the way into their personal story. Now we're going to flip them. And it's an open-ended question for those paying attention. This is not your typical coaching modality. Here we go. The question is, why stay? What are your reasons for staying? And then you ask, what else?
Right.
You keep them talking about their reasons for staying, because every single word that comes out of their mouth to this question is actually backing them away from the edge. The more they share with you about what's so good about their lives that they would stay for it, the more you are giving them that buffer that will keep them away from the ledge. Now, here's the interesting thing. If your child has thoughts of leaving and 0 reasons for staying, stay with them and dial 911.
Right.
They'll hate you for it. And you just might save their life.
Right. Wow.
Any other combination, you have more options. But if they have thoughts of leaving and no reasons for staying, stay with them and dial 911.
Right.
Now, there is a suicide prevention hotline. So if they've got thoughts of leaving and they tell you they're struggling with thoughts of leaving, and I don't care how many reasons for staying they have, you want to get them on the phone with a trained professional.
Right.
So the number, they've just shortened it to 988. And that's the number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Or it's 1-800-273-8255. I recommend everybody save this in their phone under help.
Right.
And you get them on the phone with the stranger, because it's easier for most of us to talk with a stranger than it is with somebody who might know the possible players in our pain.
Right. Right.
Our students share their stories with us, Barbara. Like Raphael, he works with underprivileged teenage girls, and he shared that having the talk about suicide has saved 16 lives so far.
Wow. Wow. That's
And
awesome.
It is. It is.
That's
really,
awesome.
really awesome. The people who are working directly with teens get all of my empathy, support, and they're just amazing.
Right.
Tammy, she had the talk with her troubled son, and they ended up crying together, and he agreed to accept professional help.
Wow. Yeah.
So you don't know whose life you're going to save. You don't wait until somebody's troubled. Now, both of those examples are people who they work with populations. They were talking to somebody who they knew was struggling with something. The reality is the talk is beautifully designed to have before there's any reason to have it. And here's why you want to do this. I'm going to give you the logic. Would you wait to talk with your child about sex until after they were pregnant?
Pregnant, exactly. Exactly.
Would you wait to talk to them about drugs until after they were in rehab?
Right.
Yeah. Would you wait to talk to them about alcohol until after they'd lost their license and, drunk driving?
Right.
No.
Right.
Are you waiting to talk with your kid about suicide?
Yeah. Right.
So we believe it's time for parents to step up.
Yeah. And grandparents. Yeah. I'll have to.
Parents, grandparents. This is an everybody issue.
Right.
So this is what we do. We have a class that we're launching called Mindset Magic, which is to help parents and teachers and anyone who's interested get the basic concepts of positive psychology, of mindset resetting, the ability to boost a mood, how the brain really works, and using simple tools to be able to change the dynamics within your own family.
Right.
And so that class is launching. We made it very user-friendly. It's 3 days, 2 hours a day.
Cool.
So super simple.
Right.
And we're training advocates.
So how do people register for that class? And we're going to be, and we're going to make sure that we put it all out there. And when is it? And give us all the particulars.
The classes are ongoing. So the easy thing is for them to join the society. Teen Suicide Prevention Society.org. Oh, that's the donation page. Teen Suicide Prevention Society.com. That's where they can join the society. And that's where we announce the upcoming classes. The idea here is that if we can start the talk about suicide before it's needed, it may never be needed.
Right.
And that's our goal. Our goal is to make suicide, especially teen suicide, a thing of the past.
Right. Jackie, thank you so much. Because you know, it is, you know, I'm, as a happiness girl, you concentrate on trying to get people to be happy, but you also do have to look at the other side that's not quite so happy. But now give them a way to get back, to give back, and to make a difference, to be able to lift up, because without the kids, we have no next generation.
And you can't tell by looking.
And you can't tell by looking. It's not something that they put, a big S on their forehead. We have to ask.
Yeah, you absolutely have to have the conversation. And so practicing with your partner, practice with another adult, practice, and then have the talk with the kid. Don't practice for too long because you don't know how long you've got.
Right.
Yeah, I got really lucky. My daughter survived. Yeah. I don't think any parent should have to live through what I did.
Right.
And I don't think any teen should have to struggle with what my daughter did. Right. And you really can't tell by looking. You can't tell if somebody's struggling with depression. You can't tell if they're struggling with anxiety. Doctors can't tell. These things are not obvious.
Right.
So you have to shine a light in the corner and see what's there. And the sooner you do it, the better.
Yeah. And what just struck me is to give them that, because right now they're going into the darkness. And if we can give them one little speck of light to bring them back,
so
rather
we've got
than
all kinds of tools. And we've got the fastest growing mindset reset mood boosting tool. It is like a vision board on steroids. And I have that for everybody on your show. If you would like to give it to them, the possibilities of this are fun. 3 minutes a day, Barbara, 3 minutes a day watching these vision boards gives a mood boost for 6 to 8 hours without rest.
Yes. I watched the one that I did, the one on being happy. I said, well, that's just exactly what, and it did, and I consider myself as a happy person, but we all have our dark side. And I think that is the first step of, hey, we do all have a dark side.
We all could use a little more positivity in our world, not toxic positivity, which is now becoming a thing, but real positive that comes from the inside out, not from the outside in. So it's not about, I'll be happy when I have the job, or I'll be happy when I have the girlfriend or the boyfriend. I'll be happy when I have the car.
Or the income.
About, I will be happy now, and then all of those things will be easier for me to have if that's what I really want.
Right.
But I'm not pushing my happiness beyond the horizon, which is what most of us do. We get the good job, and then we have to get the better job, and we get the better job, and then we have to go for the corner office.
Right.
And we're pushing happiness away.
Exactly.
Whereas if we start with happiness, if we start with happiness, all of the other things are easier.
Right.
So I'm a firm believer in let's build up your internal emotional wealth. Let's get this bank account really, really full and overflowing, because that's what drives bringing in the other money, the outside in stuff.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's why I love being part of your tribe, because you are a happiness gal and I am a happiness person, and we are just going to change the world if we could get people to believe that happiness is an inside job.
Exactly. And the thing is that too, that we are talking about teens right now, but you know what? Right now there is an epidemic of the corporate people have come up through the corporations. They have built these huge corporate careers, have now realized that they've built their career, they've climbed the career ladder, leaning up against the wrong building.
Because they don't feel fulfilled or
satisfied. And they don't feel fulfilled. And what are they doing? They're checking out.
They're not checking out. They're taking their own life.
That's exactly.
Not use a euphemism here.
Yes,
that's
true.
Of the problem.
That's true. Right. They know that, Jackie. Thank you.
Because
they take their own life. Yeah.
They take themselves out of the family, out of the village.
Right.
And there once was a time that suicide was considered a crime against the village.
Yes.
And it is not. It is now considered an individual right. And
It's
yet
an individual
the reason
choice.
that there's a problem is that people don't realize the impact it has on the village, because we don't talk about that anymore.
Right.
So talking about suicide is in and of itself a way to reduce your risk of suicide.
Right. Right.
According to the Center for Disease Control, not talking about suicide is in and of itself a risk factor.
Right. Right.
So we can mitigate risk very simply, and it all starts with having the talk.
Right. And so that's why when I first, it was like, you have got to have Jackie on. And this is why. This is why.
And this is why.
Because we have got to get this word out there, that this is a huge, huge issue. And, and you have educated me today in just, hey, you know what? Yeah, these people are. And we tend to use, different words. And I just did it. And because we don't want to say, like, I remember when I remember when a friend of mine and her sister did. And we were like, and we had no idea how to talk to her about it, because it affected everything after that. And it was like, and she just didn't get there in time. And I look back on that and go, yeah, what could, and you always blame yourself. Even me as a friend, I was like, Paula, why didn't we see this? Why didn't we see that she was going to do this? So
because you can't tell by looking.
You can't tell by looking.
This is one of the most interesting things, because most suicide prevention checklists, the ones that say these are the signs, that is the most guilt-producing document ever written.
Right.
For two reasons. One, because a parent doesn't become aware of that checklist until after their kid has tried or died.
Right.
And then it's all about guilt and shame.
Right. For them and their child.
The other reason that those checklists drive me crazy is because we have a natural brain bias towards seeing only what we want to see. If we believe our child is okay, any sign that's there is likely to be filtered out by our reticular activating system, because that's the job in the brain.
Right.
We've got millions of stimulus hitting our brain every single minute, and our brain can only translate about 40.
Right.
I used to say the reticular activating system screened out 90%, but it's actually closer. It's actually 99 point something percent.
Wow.
I mean, we get a small fraction. And what gets through is what's most closely aligned with what we believe. Right. So if we believe our kid's okay, we're not going to see any signs. And so waking up people to the fact that no sign, no problem, have the talk.
Right.
You think there's a reason to have the talk? Have the talk.
Definitely have the talk.
Yeah. Yeah. The answer is have the talk. If you want to stop suicide at any age, the talk about suicide is your first step. And then there are other steps. Then there are the steps that build mental and emotional resilience. There are the steps that improve mood and positivity. Right. There are the steps that teach emotional intelligence. We've got emotional intelligence building card games for kids as young as 3 years old.
Wow.
So we've got the resources for you. It starts with having the talk, and maybe the person you need to talk to is yourself.
Yep. Yeah.
And so if there's not anybody around to ask you the 4 questions, ask yourself the 4 questions.
Yeah.
And if you want to dive a little deeper down that one, we wrote a do-it-yourself guide called Breaking the Silence on Teen Suicide. It's actually the Why Not workbook. Okay. And this is where I explain how the brain really works, how negative echo chambers happen, and how to break them. Right. And so that's available at whynotworkbook.com. We are giving this puppy away. Everybody can do it yourself and keep yourself away from the edge.
Right. Right.
It's your job to keep yourself away from the edge. Right. We need you here.
Right. We all have a mission to fulfill in our lives. Yes.
You know, I'm not going to lay a heavy burden on anybody and say, you're here to fulfill a mission, because if you had asked me 2 years ago what my mission or my purpose in life was, I would have said, you know, I'm living. Okay. I was busy.
Right.
No, I was busy. My purpose tapped me on my shoulder the day that my daughter broke the silence.
Right.
And I wasn't ready. And if she had done it any other way, I probably could have found a way to avoid it, ignore it, and leave it alone.
Right. Right.
But the way that it happened. And then what started happening, the authors who showed up, that we got that book done in weeks, not months or years, but weeks. The authors showed up to get the book done. And then I was asked to take a TEDx stage on this topic. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. And they're like, you must.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, the TEDx journey is one of the most evolutionary journeys that I think anybody can go on, because my talk on the TEDx stage, my first script was very tactical. It actually became the basis of the Why Not workbook. That was from my first TEDx script. My second version was vulnerable.
Right.
Because I was told I had a chance to do something significant with the stage and that I would have to be vulnerable. What I didn't know, and I found out 3 weeks before the stage, is that if I was going to inspire people, I had to go from being vulnerable to being naked on the stage on this topic. And that's the script that I stood on the stage in Las Vegas and delivered in January. And it will be up on the TEDx site by the time that people hear this, most likely. So I highly encourage them to please go watch, comment on it, share it with your friends and family. Let's stop the epidemic of teen suicide. Yes. It's an everybody issue.
Yes, and worldwide issue.
And it is a worldwide issue. We're working with youth groups in Nairobi, in Liberia, in Bangladesh. They reach out to us through social media and ask us to help train them and their teens in how to have the talk. This is how we started creating suicide prevention advocates around the world. And our mission is to make suicide, especially teen suicide, a thing of the past. The way we want to do that is to train 100,000 suicide prevention advocates this year. Eventually to have one in every boardroom, one in every classroom, and one in every home. Everybody deserves an advocate. And anybody can become an advocate.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackie, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your expertise, for your caring, for your heart, to see that you are such an advocate yourself of the possibilities that we can end this horrendous epidemic that is right now so prevalent and getting worse. And
I am definitely your advocate for a better life.
Just you know, it pales in comparison, and yet sometimes, you know, there's both sides of it. And so that's what this is, why I truly believe that this is why we needed to see, because don't put off the happiness. And if you are at risk, or you even remotely think that you even could possibly, this is the other side of it.
Yeah.
Have a talk with yourself. Absolutely. Jackie, I cannot say enough about how wonderful this was. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, and we're gonna we'll make sure that this gets out there, and that we know exactly when your launch is going to be, and all the notes and all of the links will be put in the show notes. So
thank you very much, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Jackie. This was amazing. Have a great day.
You too.
And you are welcome. And you've been listening to Barbara and Friends on a Mission. And we've been talking to Jackie Simmons. to suicide prevention. It is preventable. So thank you again so much, Jackie. Have a great day.